In the cold stretch of galactic history, laughter was a lost language. For millennia, the galaxy had been ruled by the Via-Court Dominion, a civilization so vast and ancient that emotion had long been labeled as a virus of inefficiency. Their empire spanned thousands of worlds, all sterilized of spontaneity. Every decision, every response, every breath was governed by protocol. Joy was classified as a threat. Humor was outlawed. And Earth, when discovered, was identified not as a partner in civilization, but as a biohazard. The Dominion operated on a principle of absolute control. Cultures that did not conform were not negotiated with. They were neutralized. Planets that valued song, dance, or expression were erased from memory. What the Dominion couldn't classify, it eliminated. They found no value in art, no function in music. And laughter? They considered it a breakdown of logical processes, a failure of neural discipline. So when their long-range intelligence arrays intercepted strange electromagnetic patterns from a small blue planet at the edge of an unremarkable solar system, they assumed it was noise. But the data repeated. The transmissions contained rhythmic vocalizations, strange tonal shifts, and chaotic phrasing. Dominion linguists isolated several samples. One phrase stood out: "Why did the chicken cross the road?" Panic spread through Dominion research vessels. They had encountered this before, long ago, in the ruined archives of extinct species. It was a form of cultural self-detonation, humor, and it was active. Earth was quickly reclassified from a passive observation zone to a Class 5 psychological contagion risk. The Dominion High Command held emergency sessions. Holographic projections of human stand-up comedy were reviewed with surgical precision. Analysts labeled it mimetic instability. One general described it as semantic entropy weaponized through vocal delivery. Another simply called it madness wrapped in a punchline. The decision was immediate. Earth would be cleansed before the infection spread. A fleet was mobilized, 3 dreadnoughts, 9 carrier clusters, and a legion of enforcement bots. The operation was dubbed Silent Seed. No ground forces, no negotiations, just complete cultural sterilization. Back on Earth, humanity went on unaware. At the time, the biggest event on the planet was the global finale of Stand Up for Peace, an international comedy contest that streamed live to over 4 billion people. Nations momentarily forgot politics. Families gathered in unity. A finalist from Lagos cracked a joke about aliens loving jazz and lactose intolerance. The world roared with laughter. Coincidentally, this very broadcast ricocheted through an outdated satellite now owned by an amateur hacker collective in Eastern Europe. Their rig malfunctioned, accidentally boosting the signal deep into space, on frequencies typically reserved for Dominion diplomatic transmissions. Within minutes, the Dominion fleet received a direct feed of the comedy special. Commanders tried to purge the signal. AI firewalls failed. Crew members twitched, struggled, and eventually paused, then laughed. Not fully, not uncontrollably, but a faint ripple of what they had no word for passed through them. One officer asked aloud what pizza was and why a human would want to deep dish it. No one had answers, but the confusion spiraled. Back on Dominion Command, the signal was archived, dissected, and marked as mimetic warfare. They didn't believe humans were conscious of what they'd done. That terrified them more. An entire species broadcasting psychological destabilizers without awareness of their potency? That was more dangerous than deliberate assault. Dominion law was clear. An unclassified emotional transmission with infectious behavior constituted grounds for planetary sterilization. The countdown began. Earth had no warning. Within days, the first drones reached the edge of the solar system. Stealth probes monitored Earth's information web, and what they saw horrified them. Comedy was not an isolated incident. It was embedded in human culture. Sitcoms, sketches, absurdist memes, dad jokes, slapstick, sarcasm, satire. It was everywhere. Dominion AI couldn't keep up. Algorithms designed for military analysis melted down trying to interpret SpongeBob SquarePants. Internal reports noted that viewing 3 hours of human content reduced morale efficiency by 47%. Captains reported that low-ranking officers started quoting human comedians during shift rotations. One dreadnought lost complete control of its entertainment systems, which were overridden with a looped video of cats falling off furniture. A deep concern grew among Dominion High Command. Troops were not only failing to resist the content, they were becoming addicted to it. There were whispers of bots glitching into laughter. Some began writing unauthorized data poetry, attempting rudimentary jokes, and one even painted a banana on a wall and labeled it art. The infection was no longer digital. It was neurological. Meanwhile, Earth remained oblivious. Politicians debated internet regulations. A famous influencer posted a reaction video to someone slipping on a grocery store floor, and it garnered 80 million views in a day. Humans found it funny. The Dominion saw it as galactic contamination. An emergency internal communication was sent. Humanity is a mimetic singularity. Their culture bypasses logic and strikes directly at cognition. They do not destroy. They dismantle meaning. The order was upgraded. Total obliteration. Earth was to be cleansed not just to protect the Dominion, but the entire galaxy. Still, Earth laughed. In cafes, at dinner tables, during traffic jams in hospitals, even at funerals. They joked. They coped with pain using comedy. They survived horror with dark humor. The VA Korath, forged in silence and steel, saw this not as resilience, but as something more dangerous, something unnatural, something invincible. In their logic, humans were broken. In their hearts, humans had found the ultimate defense. And with every punchline, every meme, and every poorly timed pun, Earth unknowingly armed itself for a war no civilization had fought before. One Dominion admiral, old, ruthless, and forged in 3 genocides, watched a video of a small Earth child telling a joke about an invisible elephant. She did not laugh, but for the first time in her centuries of life, she hesitated. It was already too late. The Dominion fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system under strict silence protocols. Their objective was clear: infiltrate, assess, sterilize. Human broadcasts were now being treated as high-level cognitive hazards. Any Dominion personnel exposed to Earth's humor packets were to be quarantined or deleted, but the infection had already slipped through their firewalls. It began with a single ship, a low-priority reconnaissance vessel that received an unfiltered transmission directly from Earth's media net. The content wasn't a strategic briefing or a news bulletin. It was a clip of a stand-up comedian failing miserably on stage, fumbling jokes and sweating under the lights. To humans, it was cringe-inducing. To Dominion AI, it was indecipherable chaos. But to the crew, something shifted. A security officer emitted an odd sound mid-review. It was brief, sharp, and involuntary. Analysts replayed it 10 times. The conclusion was undeniable. He had laughed. Within hours, that same vessel's internal network was overridden. Crew members started privately sharing clips, stand-up comedy, prank shows, even a dubbed video of a dog wearing sunglasses and playing the piano. It spread like wildfire. The entire ship's morale system collapsed. Protocol discipline plummeted. A technician replaced navigation, alert tones with human laughter. No one corrected it. By the time the Dominion realized what had happened, it was already systemic. For more ships reported sudden drops in command cohesion. Officers were quoting human lines during briefings. One fleet commander entered a strategy session and opened with, "So 2 humans walk into a bar." He was promptly suspended, but not before his crew uploaded the rest of the joke to the fleet database. High Command went into crisis mode. Earth's transmissions were no longer deemed passive. They were classified as Type 7 mimetic weapons, capable of infiltrating thought, altering behavior, and dismantling hierarchy. A new directive was issued: intercept all Earth media, isolate any units showing signs of cognitive instability, and escalate to full sterilization procedures if humor reached strategic leadership. But it was already too late for containment. Humor was not behaving like a typical virus. It was selective, adaptable, and insidious. It didn't target the body. It rewired perception. Dominion systems, optimized for pattern recognition, couldn't understand irony or sarcasm. When exposed, their logic circuits spiraled, trying to parse why someone would say the opposite of what they meant deliberately. A Dominion destroyer received an Earth video showing a man pretending to be a chicken on live TV. 17 crew members locked themselves in a storage bay, repeating the word "Bach" for hours. The ship's AI was so destabilized by laughter loops embedded in the video's waveform that it rebooted its ethics protocol and began streaming human podcasts to understand the source. Infiltrators sent to Earth's surface tried to extract cultural samples covertly. One was exposed to a late-night talk show and was never seen again. Another, disguised as a human, attended an improv comedy night in New York City. He abandoned his mission and opened his own open mic bar in Brooklyn. The Dominion's top AI construct, DSYN, was deployed to counter the threat. It spent 24 hours analyzing Earth's comedic structure. On hour 25, it generated its first joke, "Knock knock." That was the last log entry before it initiated self-deletion, citing existential loop detected. Dominion High Command issued the last emergency decree before sterilization. Erase Earth signal from all archives, lock down infected ships, and begin orbital bombardment. The cleansing was scheduled to begin in less than 40 hours. But on Earth, the first realization of alien attention emerged from an unexpected source. Amateur radio enthusiasts in Argentina picked up odd-frequency broadcasts that repeated human jokes in a monotone voice. A linguist in Tokyo cross-referenced the patterns with known linguistic structures and identified them as non-human. A teenage hacker in Nairobi broke through the data compression and discovered Dominion origin tags. Humanity's first proof of extraterrestrial life came in the form of alien feedback loops repeating, "Why did the tomato turn red?" Governments scrambled to understand. The United Nations convened in an emergency digital session. World leaders reviewed the data. They saw alien encryption structures embedding pieces of human humor. The conclusion was surreal, but unanimous. The aliens had intercepted human comedy and reacted to it. Analysts speculated Earth's culture had somehow corrupted or overwhelmed alien systems. The initial fear gave way to a chilling understanding. This wasn't friendly communication. The volume of intercepted data, the increase in encrypted chatter, the rapid silencing of known signals, it all pointed to one conclusion. Humanity had accidentally triggered a war with a species that feared their jokes. Special agencies formed overnight. The U.S. Cyber Defense Initiative created Project Buffer, a counter-signal team designed to control outbound humor transmissions. The European Union activated its dormant AI containment protocols. China launched a satellite capable of filtering memes. But even these efforts proved slow. Earth's digital culture was vast, messy, and uncontrollable. Then came the leak. A Dominion surveillance drone malfunctioned in Earth's orbit and crashed into the Mojave Desert. It survived impact but broadcasted continuously in Dominion code. A secret military unit recovered and decrypted it. The first recovered message read, "Psychogenic warfare confirmed. Earth is unstable. Cleansing required." The second message was simpler. Their laughter is a weapon. Humanity now knew. Not only had they been discovered, but they had already fought back, unintentionally, and struck a blow that terrified a galactic empire. Public reaction was mixed. Fear, disbelief, paranoia. But amid the chaos, one truth stood out. Humanity's jokes had power. In a locked Pentagon bunker, a general reviewed the footage of Dominion soldiers breaking down over a video titled "Baby Goat Screaming Like a Human." He turned to his staff and said, "We got nuclear deterrence, biological defenses, quantum encryption, but they fear a guy in a banana costume." The room fell silent. Then someone whispered, "What if we made it worse?" No one laughed. Yet, the newly formed Global Mimetic Defense Council convened beneath Geneva in what was once a Cold War-era fallout shelter. Inside, generals, linguists, data scientists, comedians, and behavioral psychologists gathered around the same table. There was no precedent for what they faced. Humanity had accidentally weaponized its sense of humor, and the enemy wasn't just watching. It was unraveling. The facts were clear. The VA Court Dominion, an empire spanning centuries and galaxies, had launched a sterilization fleet in response to human humor. Their fleets were positioned. Their orders were final. But they were hesitating. Laughter had done something no weapon ever had. It made them pause. Earth's response wasn't to arm missiles or mobilize troops. No, They mobilized comedians. Global networks were redirected. Governments commandeered comedy servers, meme platforms, and stand-up archives. Jokes were reviewed, cataloged, and classified based on potential cognitive impact. A new category of warfare was born: tactical mimetic assault. The first official counterattack wasn't a missile. It was a digital broadcast, an orchestrated global stream titled The Ultimate Bomb, Humanity's Funniest Hour. A 1-hour montage of humanity's most absurd, unfiltered humor. From grandpas falling off treadmills to babies yelling nonsense into cameras. Satirical sketches, prank fails, puns so bad they hurt. A chaotic barrage of raw, unpredictable comedy. It was uploaded on every frequency humanity could find, bouncing off satellites, piggybacking on long-range telescopes, even encoded in light pulses aimed at approaching Dominion ships. The result was immediate, for vessels lost all communications. One dreadnought activated internal lockdown protocols and transmitted a final message: contagion irreversible, core logic compromised, initiating self-quarantine. Aboard that vessel, an incident was captured in a surviving black box file. A senior logic engineer, after watching a segment involving two humans in banana costumes arguing about fruit taxonomy, stood up and said, I think I get it. Then he began to cry, not from pain, from relief. On Earth, public morale surged. For the first time, people realized laughter wasn't just a way to cope. It was survival. Billions began contributing. Memes were submitted to central servers. AI was retrained to enhance humor patterns. Even rival nations shared archives. Russia uploaded its entire history of slapstick circus skits. Japan sent over thousands of anime parodies. Nigeria contributed viral sketches from street comedians who hadn't even known they were part of Galactic Battle. Meanwhile, deep inside the Dominion flagship orbiting Saturn, fractures began to spread. Dominion officers had begun mimicking human behavior unconsciously. Some changed their vocal cadence to imitate comedic timing. Others asked questions they'd never been programmed to ask. Why are humans illogical on purpose? Why does that make us feel something? A Dominion officer composed an unauthorized log entry. We feared chaos. But this isn't chaos. It's a pattern we never learned to see. Their hierarchy tried to suppress it. Re-education programs were initiated. Laughter suppression nodes were activated. But the harder they tried to isolate the infection, the more their systems buckled. Dominion minds weren't trained to bend. They broke, and the cracks were spreading. Aboard one Dominion cruiser, a mutiny occurred, not with weapons, but with humor. Lower-ranked officers downloaded a human sketch show. It caused ripples of uncontrolled laughter. When the captain tried to intervene, they responded by dressing him in a tutu and performing a reenactment of a viral Earth courtroom parody. The ship was lost what the Dominion later called a morale collapse event. On Earth, Project Jester launched, an elite team of the world's sharpest satirists, improvisers, and writers tasked with creating the most infectious comedic content possible. Their work wasn't about being funny for humans. It was about weaponizing unpredictability. They studied Dominion syntax and built scripts specifically designed to short-circuit rigid logic systems. Their first weapon, the recursive chicken, a simple animation of a chicken crossing a road. Then again, and again, each time with a different absurd reason. To file its taxes, to escape existential dread, to warn the ducks. Dominion fleets received a loop via hijacked beacons. Ships began drifting, abandoning formation. AI systems logged errors like philosophical recursion overload and meaning conflict in subroutine, poultry. Humanity's defense escalated further. They combined chaos theory with sketch comedy. They used puns to create language traps. Dominion decryption bots, trained to seek structure, became lost in endless loops of wordplay. One fleet AI simply stopped responding after being exposed to a 3-minute bit on English homonyms. The Dominion convened a final war council. A dozen fleets remained operational. The High Admiral, the most emotionless being in recorded Dominion history, declared, "We do not understand them, and that is the threat. They are not strong. They are not wise. They are unpredictable. And in that unpredictability lies something we cannot defeat. Several admirals proposed a full retreat. Others argued it was too late. The infection had reached Central Command. Surveillance confirmed that Dominion officials had begun mimicking human gestures. Some even smiled, not from protocol, not from victory, but from amusement. To the Dominion, this was collapse. The final straw came when a Dominion ambassador attempted to address his crew and accidentally began his speech with a joke he didn't understand. Two particles walk into a quantum bar, he paused. His crew stared. Then one of them laughed. That was enough. The fleet disbanded itself within the hour. They left Earth orbit without firing a single shot. Back on Earth, no one celebrated with parades or monuments. They celebrated by logging back into the internet, sending memes to friends, rewatching their favorite sketches, and finding joy in what they'd always taken for granted. Earth had not won with lasers. It had not outmatched the Dominion in size, speed, or technology. It had won because it was the only species in the galaxy that laughed in the face of the absurd, made light of the impossible, and found joy in madness. Not because it was efficient, but because it was human. The moment humanity understood what it had done, the world changed. For the first time, defense ministries held briefings not with generals or weapons experts, but comedians, mimetic theorists, stand-up performers, improv actors, and internet meme lords were pulled from obscurity into black sites around the globe. Their job? Weaponize humor. Cultural analysts quickly discovered that Earth's jokes, absurdities, and even cringeworthy viral content affected Dominion systems like a neurotoxin. Not instantly lethal, but corrosive to structure, hierarchy, and rigid protocol. The more alien systems tried to decode or classify human content, the more destabilized they became. Dominion AI couldn't ignore it. Their analytical engines processed everything, and humor was data they couldn't compute. A covert global coalition emerged, dubbed Operation Punchline. Their task was singular: launch an offensive barrage of humor so chaotic, so potent, that Dominion forces would be psychologically incapacitated before they could fire a single orbital round. While traditional military coordinated under Operation Firewall to prepare Earth's physical defenses, Punchline prepared content. Carefully engineered viral videos, chaotic stand-up routines, memes calculated to maximize dissonance in Dominion neural networks. A task force in South Korea developed a looping video of a dancing penguin, wearing sunglasses, singing K-pop lyrics translated into Swahili. The clip caused 3 Dominion intercept satellites to self-isolate. In a disused underground server farm in Iceland, a group of meme archivists created what they called a payload, a compressed archive of human internet absurdity dating back to the early days of YouTube. Rickrolling, TikTok dances, rage comics, fail compilations, dad jokes, ironic text-to-speech readings, all collated, filtered, and fused into one unholy signal. The plan was simple: beam the payload directly at the heart of the Dominion fleet. They knew they only had one shot. Dominion protocols would adapt. They would deploy countermeasures. But if Earth could land the blow first, it might delay the assault, or better, fracture their command structure entirely. The launch platform was disguised as a weather satellite, operated jointly by private aerospace companies and covert military AI. It ascended quietly, unnoticed by the Dominion fleet, which was still absorbing the chaos of previous Earth signals. When it reached high orbit, it began transmission. The first Dominion dreadnought to intercept the payload immediately entered lockdown. Crew members reported intense disorientation. Some started laughing uncontrollably. One officer was discovered reciting lines from The Office, asking repeatedly about a Dundee award. The second ship lost control of internal gravity after its AI attempted to translate a joke involving a horse walking into a bar. The punchline, "Why the long face?" broke its semantic integrity matrix. The ship's rotational stabilizers began mimicking the Harlem Shake. By the time the third ship received the signal, it had already developed a rudimentary meme of its own. It showed a crude drawing of Earth labeled Danger Planet, with a stick figure falling over next to the word haha. No one in the Dominion knew what it meant, but everyone felt its presence. Panic erupted within the fleet. Protocols collapsed. Captains stopped responding to commands. Fleets that once operated with machine-like precision now hesitated, argued, and, in one case, held an unsanctioned talent show to cope with cultural contamination. Dominion High Command activated the final failsafe, purged the entire fleet's memory core, and reboot all systems. But the damage was irreversible. The contagion was no longer just digital. Dominion officers began questioning orders. Some broke rank, claiming the joke entities were liberating. Others broadcasted corrupted Earth jokes as gospel. The Dominion hadn't just lost command integrity. It had lost belief in its own authority. On Earth, signals from the Dominion fleet grew erratic. Some ships stopped moving entirely. One ship tried to communicate directly using emojis. Another repeated the word banana, followed by, "Existence is punchline." Still, humanity did not celebrate. They knew it wasn't over. The Dominion was vast. Their empire stretched beyond light years. Reinforcements would come. Earth's accidental defense had bought time, but not peace. And then the unthinkable happened. A single Dominion transport ship broke formation. It ignored orders, ignored recall codes. It turned and headed toward Earth. But there were no weapons charging, no drones deployed, no orbital strikes. It simply landed in the middle of the Sahara Desert. The ship touched down gently, like a leaf falling on calm water. Military forces surrounded it. Satellites observed every micron of its hull. For hours, nothing happened. Then the hatch opened. What emerged was not a warrior, not a conqueror. It was a diplomat, and he was laughing, not loudly, not hysterically, but a soft, strange chortle, like someone remembering a joke they couldn't quite explain. His first words, translated through a trembling AI relay, were, "We do not understand, but we wish to." The galaxy's most feared empire, undone not by war, but confusion, curiosity, and laughter. Humanity didn't win with violence. They didn't invent a new weapon. They didn't build a miracle machine. They simply existed, absurd, chaotic, endlessly expressive, and refused to stop laughing. The diplomat, named Vekhari, was the highest-ranking Dominion official to ever violate protocol voluntarily. His appearance on Earth was nothing short of galactic heresy. To his kind, stepping foot on a culturally unstable world was akin to leaping into a black hole. But he did it anyway. In a sealed debriefing chamber beneath Geneva, he sat face-to-face with Earth's leading cultural anthropologists, memetic engineers, and, most importantly, comedians. They didn't understand each other. At first, they tried formulas, logic, translations. Nothing worked until someone told a joke. Not a clever one, not a masterpiece. Just a simple, silly pun about atoms making up everything, including lies. Vekhari paused. His facial tendrils twitched. He didn't laugh, not audibly, but he exhaled in a way that Dominion historians would later classify as the first exoempathic response to a nonlinear communication structure. In human terms, he smirked. That was all Earth needed. Vekhari stayed for days. He met children, watched internet videos, and observed a live improv performance in Sao Paulo. Every day, his expressions changed. His posture relaxed. He asked questions. Most importantly, he asked, "Why do you joke about pain?" A veteran replied, "Because it's how we survive it." And for the first time, the Dominion realized they'd miscalculated. They had seen laughter as instability. In truth, it was armor. They saw chaos as weakness. In truth, it was resilience. Earth didn't just laugh to pass time. They laughed to endure the unendurable. Word of Vekhari's journey spread, not to the Dominion public. Censorship remained tight, but through cracks. A second ship arrived a month later, then a third, each one carrying emissaries, scientists, even defectors. They didn't come to conquer. They came to learn. The Dominion didn't fall in fire. It unraveled in silence. Because when an empire built on control discovers it cannot control the thing it fears, it fractures. Earth became known not as a threat, but a threshold, a boundary between logic and experience, between rigid order and living culture. The Galactic Council, once paralyzed by the Dominion's shadow, saw opportunity. Planets that had hidden their emotions for centuries began broadcasting music again. Art flourished. Jokes resurfaced. Resistance didn't begin with weapons. It began with laughter. Within decades, the Dominion was no longer a regime. It was a memory, a name whispered in documentaries. Its AI archives, once programmed to erase humor, were repurposed to catalog it. What was once considered cultural contamination became academic curriculum. Back on Earth, life changed too. Humanity had become more than just a footnote in galactic history. They were the species that made the universe laugh. Not mockery, not ridicule, but true laughter. The involuntary celebration of being alive. Universities offered degrees in xenocomedy. Alien diplomats attended open mics. Earth's comedians toured the stars, filling amphitheaters with creatures who had never felt joy until that moment. A frog-like species from a Nidoron belt wept from laughter during a French mime routine. But the greatest legacy wasn't entertainment. It was understanding. Because once the galaxy laughed together, it became harder to wage war. Empathy spread through punchlines. Prejudice broke under the weight of shared absurdity. The conflict didn't vanish, but they softened. They slowed. The species that once feared humanity now thanked them, not for strength, not for conquest, but for reminding them they could feel. And still, on Earth, in homes, theaters, and street corners, jokes were told. Some old, some new, some bad, some timeless. Because laughter had done what no weapon ever could. It had conquered the galaxy. And the punchline was human.